This is my 2013 BMW 328i that I purchased from Copart as a run and drive. It did have some minor damage on the front end. The headlight, the bumper, the fender and the bonnet were damaged, but because I saw the interior of this car, which is the best color combination in my opinion, I thought this is gonna be a really good buy. But once the car got delivered, I heard the gearbox was making a bad noise. I removed the oil pan and found a lot of glitter in the oil. So that meant this gearbox is done. So I got a second-hand one from Facebook Marketplace and installed it. I bought and installed the new headlight and the new fender. Then I knocked the hood back into shape. I bondoed it, primered it, and wrapped the whole car. And with all of that being done, the car looked amazing. And in my opinion, it got transformed from looking like this to looking like this. And at this point, some people might call this done, but being that this is a N20 engine and it has 130,000 miles on the clock and absolutely no record that the timing was done, I think it's time for us to take care of that. In this box I have a complete kit for the timing, and it's been sent to me by ECS Tuning to complete this job. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised how they just wanted to help and supplied me with all that I need to do the timing on this car. And here there is a list with everything they sent, and this comes up to be about $750 as a package, and to me that's a very good value for money. The link for the website is in the description. Thank you, ECS Tuning. Now the engine we're working on, as you already know, it's the N20 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that develops 240 horsepower, but it's known to have timing issues, and at around 100,000 miles you should consider doing the timing. And so in this video we are going to do just that, and this is going to be a more detailed how-to video on the timing, and hopefully this motivates you to take on this job at home and avoid the expensive shops where they would charge you an arm and a leg for this particular job. This hopefully helps avoid a lot of these cars being sold for nothing just because the timing needs to be done. So let's get into it. I'm removing the airbox and all of the ducts that connect to the turbo just to give me more room to work. And this is something that you should do as well, because you will work quite a bit in the front of the engine. This is the wastegate, and this is the noise I'm getting, and I'm sure this is the issue. So this is loose, and I think the fix would be to undo this nuts here and tighten this bracket. Just get it closer to the actual actuator. I think that will make the rattle stop. It needs to be tight, and it's not. It's very loose at this point, and I think that's the source of the rattle that I'm hearing. Yeah, that's definitely the source. This needs to come off anyway because the timing chain tensioner is right here, and in order to remove the tensioner, this would be in its way. So it has two bolts under, and it will disconnect from the turbo, and I can then also tighten those two nuts to make sure that this is gonna hold that flap closed when it needs to be closed. So now I need to remove the top portion of the engine, and in order to remove the engine cover I have to start with the plastic around the engine bay, and that will give me access all the way to the back, and we can start working on removing the engine cover. You just grab this rubber. Yeah, you have to also be careful for this extra wire here. And it goes across the engine bay. And after this is removed, this can come out. 10mm nuts right here. They only turn 45 degrees. So don't push them because you're gonna break them. Just turn them 45 and this should be released. The next thing that needs to be removed is this bar that goes across from this strut to the middle of the car and to the other strut. So you have one bolt here, two under those covers, and one at the other end. The ignition coils need to be removed because the wire harness is going to be disconnected and moved to the side. At the back of the engine there is a bracket that holds the engine beauty cover, and that needs to be removed so we can gain access to the vacuum pump. And for that you need a special tool, and this is what I have here. It's basically a mini ratchet, but it's almost impossible to remove the vacuum pump without one, because there is almost no space between the engine and the firewall. This is the vacuum pump, and as you can see it's held in place by 3 bolts, and those are difficult to remove without this special mini ratchet. The next step is to disconnect the fuel rail and the fuel lines. The fuel pump needs to be removed, and it's only held in place by 2 bolts. After that, the wire harness can be removed and set to the side. The camshaft magnetic actuators need to be removed, and then we can start unbolting the engine cover. Yeah, the chain is kind of loose, which is no good. I think it's either a broken guide or the timing chain has stretched, because it should be tight. Usually what you do in this situation is you drop the subframe, drop the oil pan so you can access the oil pump timing as well. Like there is a chain with a tensioner there as well that needs to be done because they're known to fail. But I don't want to do that because then the car will need an alignment, because you never put the subframe back in the exact same spot, so it needs an exact alignment. And to avoid that, I have to lift the subframe in place and lift the engine up so that it gives me enough access to remove the oil pan. And so that means I have to disconnect the engine mounts on each side and jack the engine up from the bell housing. And then I should have enough access to remove the oil pan. But in order to do that, I have to disconnect a few things just to make sure it's not gonna cause any issues. For example, the intake on this side. This needs to be disconnected because it's a hard pipe, and if you lift the engine, this could crack and break. And now we have access to the engine mount. To jack up the engine, I am using a piece of wood just to spread the load, and I'm actually lifting by the oil pan of the gearbox, but pay attention, I'm using just the edge of the oil pan where those ridges are, and it's more durable. Because this is a plastic pan, it could break really easily. But the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I need the clearance once I need to remove the pan. And if the jack is on the bell housing, it won't allow me to remove the pan. So make sure you pay attention to this step. If you think about it, it is a little bit sketchy having the engine rest on the oil pan of the gearbox, but that gives me just about enough clearance to remove the oil pan without dropping the subframe. And that's a huge win because no more alignment needed after this job, and those bolts are one-time use, so you can avoid some extra cost. Now this right here is the main reason why you should do the timing if the car has about 100,000 miles. As you can see, the pickup tube, it's almost completely clogged. It is still somehow able to draw oil, but it would have been bad if I didn't do this job. If you're gonna attempt to do one of these jobs, you need one of these toolboxes. This is the timing kit for the BMW N20 and 26, and this is a must. Now don't think that you need to buy the original BMW tool, because this is just an Amazon kit and it works just fine. It has everything you need in it and it can do the job just fine. I've used it multiple times and it works well. And also alongside this you will need this particular box, which helps you with the oil pump. It has an oil pump sprocket removal tool and also a locking mechanism for the flywheel when it comes to removing the big crankshaft bolt. In order to lock the engine into position, you have to use this, and this goes into the bell housing basically, but from the engine side, and it goes that way and it locks the flywheel in place. Now on BMWs like this thing is in place to keep the hole unplugged, I guess. And you have to get a pick tool to grab it and pull it out. And now this can slide in its place. But it's not easy to get out. And I can't. There's basically, you have to go by feel. I cannot film anything in there to show you how this goes. After you turn the engine and you locked it into position, the camshafts need to be locked into position as well using this tool. You have to make sure that both camshafts are facing up and the tool sits flush with the head. Now this thing goes into the opening of the bell housing and connects to the flywheel to hold it in place, so that you can actually start removing the big bolt from the crankshaft. This bolt is very tight, so you're gonna need a cheater bar. I just didn't have one, so I'm using the leg from the engine hoist. After the big bolt is loose, you can also take out the timing tensioner. Next, the camshaft bolts can be removed as well. With the big bolt and pulley removed, it's time to undo the timing guide pins. After the pins are removed and these two bolts at the top, we can remove the sprockets, and then the whole timing assembly should come out through the top of the engine. This is what we have. This is exactly the bits that broke off. These were meant to hold these two together here, and they broke off right here. So, as you can see, they're really tiny and very thin pieces of plastic. Now, they're very flexible when they're new, but going through all of those heat cycles and these many years, it becomes brittle. So it has to be changed. And it doesn't have to be necessarily 100,000 miles or above. And it's more about the age of the car, I think. This plastic ages, and I think if it has more miles and if it's been used a lot, the oil that lubricates the engine makes this last a little bit longer. But still, I would say if it's 2013, 2014, even 2015, I think this has to be done no matter the mileage, because the plastic is old enough and it will fail. And just this little bits could kill the entire engine, because as you saw, they were blocking the oil intake. And yeah, the engine could just not have enough oil and seize altogether. So this was caught just in the right perfect time. And I'm happy that I decided to do it, because if I was to sell the car with this, it would have been done really soon. Now it's time to remove the oil pump chain assembly. Keep in mind that the oil pump has a balance shaft integrated for the engine, and you should not move its position. With using this tool allows you to lock the sprocket into place, and this way nothing moves while you remove the main bolt. With the oil pump assembly removed, it's time to put together the new parts that ECS tuning provided. To make sure you assemble this all together correctly, you can look at the parts you just removed from the car. And if that's completely broken, then you can find pictures online really fast. And look at that, night and day difference. Let's start reassembling. This main bolt gets torqued to 95 Newton meters. The timing chain and guides slide in easily, and to make sure you're not making a mistake when installing the sprockets, they have a stamp on each one. One says in for intake and one X for exhaust. These two bolts get torqued to 10 Newton meters, and then we can start installing the pins to hold in place the timing guides. After the pins and covers for the pins are in place, we can move to the main hub. Now for this you have to use a new bolt because this is a stretch bolt, and in the kit that I presented to you at the beginning, this bolt is included as well. 100 Newton meters plus 270 degrees of rotation for the big bolt. That's 100 Newton meters, and after everything is back installed, that needs to be another 270 degrees. And I will mark it and we will do that. Now the new tensioner needs to go in. Before this gets installed, we need to tighten these two, and I need to put the other type of tensioner. This replaces the tensioner, but it's not flexible. It doesn't have a spring inside. So when you put this through, you can set it to a particular amount of force, and it will stay like that when you tighten these bolts, because the twist is going to want the chain to pull and it's going to push on the tensioner. If you use the regular tensioner, it's going to mess up the angle here because it can turn. So that's why you need this. You don't need too much force here. You can just do it by hand, and the chain is really tight at this point. And that's enough. You don't need much. The spec is about 5 Newton meters or something like that, so you could just do it by hand and it's enough tension. Now this part of the tool is to line up these things, because these are the ones that get transfer the signal to the sensors that are down here, and this is how it knows their position. So it doesn't matter what position this sprocket is in, as long as this is timed correctly, then it will be the sensor will know the exact position and it will work just fine. But this has to be locked in place. Both of the crankshafts need to be pointing up like I did at the beginning. So this comes in next, and it has to line up with these pins. One here and one here. And with these bolts, you set this into position. Just a little bit, not too much. Just so that this is not moving, it's stable. And these are into their pinholes, and they're really tight, so no movement at all. Now we can tighten these bolts, and the sprockets are going to be timed to the camshaft. They get torqued to 55 Newton meters and 55 angle of torque. That's 55. Now we set this down to 0. With the top portion all sorted, it's time to do 270 degrees of angle for the main bolt. Okay, that's 270 degrees. Whew. Very tight. Don't forget to remove the tool. And without this, I don't think you can do the torque on the main bolt. It's almost impossible. Only if you have the engine out and somebody else can hold the flywheel for you in a different method. But this is really good to have. Now I'm just turning the engine by hand a few times just to see if everything lines up. Yeah, all good. We can move forward. Now the wastegate can be reinstalled. All right. Now that's a tight wastegate. Wastegate. No west. It's a wastegate. Anyway, it's very tight now. And I don't think this is gonna rattle anymore. And I'm happy with that. Now the engine cover was cleaned and it needs new gaskets. And to remove the old ones, I'm just using a pick tool and just grab them and pull them out. Because they're pretty much dry and they won't seal properly if you don't change them. Now it's time to install the cover, but when you do this, make sure you don't pinch any wires or anything on the edge of the head, and make sure it's very clean because the gasket will seal a lot better. With all of those bolts torqued to 12 Newton meters, it's time to install the fuel rail and the fuel pump. The wiring harness can go back in its position, and then we can install the ignition coils. With the engine almost reassembled, it's time to reinstall the plastic bits, but as you can see they're dirty, so a good clean is in order. That's much better. This is probably the easiest step of this job, so if you made it this far, I'm sure you can figure out how to reinstall the plastic bits. And don't forget that the oil filter needs to be replaced as well. With the new filter and O-rings in place, it's time to torque it to spec, and usually it says on the cap. In this case, it's 24 Newton meters. And now it's time to add the engine oil, and in this case it's 5W30 BMW oil from ECS Tuning. This engine needs a total of 5 quarts, add 4.5 and then check the oil level just to make sure you're not adding too much. Now it's time to add the foam piece on top of the engine that muffles the sound of the injectors, and then the engine cover can go on. And with that, the reassembly is complete, and now we can start the car and see if everything works well. It's complaining about the wastegate because I think I've tightened it too much. I have to adjust that, but apart from that, everything looks good. Okay, no more wastegate error, everything looks good. We can now run the car for a little bit to get it up to temperature. And yeah, hood is open, door open, washer fluid level low. That's okay, I'll fill that up and it should be all good. The engine is up to temperature and there's no oil leaks. The engine sounds very good and that's a job done. So in the next episode we have to clean the engine bay really well, because as you can see it's still very dirty. Even though I cleaned some of the parts, I want to clean the full engine bay, and then the interior needs to be cleaned as well. Then we can call the car ready. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you ECS Tuning for providing the parts for this timing job. And if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Give it a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next one.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name.